Rey Vakili, welcome to The Mentor.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for coming in. So, what's the derivation of Vakili?
It is an Iranian last name, Persian,
Right.
Iranian, whatever you want to say. And Vakil is lawyer. So I think it's sort of a derivation of that, maybe somewhere in the past.
Right, so your parents are from
Iran.
Yeah.
Yes.
They came to Australia?
They came to Australia right after the revolution, actually during the Iran-Iraq War in 1980.
Right.
And I've got two older brothers that were both born there, moved here when they were very young. And then my sister and I were both born in Australia.
Both born here.
Yeah.
And so, but just out of interest, is your dad or your mum a lawyer?
No, actually. None of us were lawyers, but I did want to be a lawyer for a period of time, however, went down a very different track.
My dad emigrated to Australia during the Civil War too, and I know why my dad left, why his parents left, I should say, is because of the terrible things they saw that are happening in their village. Greeks are fighting Greeks, and it was a communist versus a nationalist, and they were sort of killing each other left, right and centre. Have you ever heard the story? What was happening?
Yeah, so 1979 was obviously the Islamic Revolution. A lot of changes going on then. I think people thought things would be very different post the overthrow of the Shah.
Because that's the Shah of Iran. He took off. He went to France or somewhere.
He ran off to France, and
Yeah.
then I think he ended up in Egypt for some time, and then his family now all reside in the US, I think in DC.
And Khomeini took over.
Khomeini took over,
Yeah,
yes.
right.
And then immediately following the revolution, there was the Iran-Iraq War, which really just consolidated the power of the Ayatollah and the regime. And that was when I think things started turning. I mean, I don't know if you know much about the Iran-Iraq War, but it was a nasty, nasty war, chemical warfare. All Iranian men were being conscripted into the army. So, they had two young kids at that time. I think they just wanted a better lifestyle, more security. And my dad had actually studied in the States and spent, a large chunk of time there. So was sort of familiar with the West. I think he didn't want to move back to America, although a lot of his family ended up moving there. They're all in sort of Palo Alto, San Francisco area. But I think it was just like what visa came through first. It was like Canada or Australia. And
let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because Tehran was probably still is, I don't know, but during the pre-Khomeini was quite a sophisticated place. It was
still
pretty
is.
Cool.
Incredibly, I think it's got one of the sort of highest tertiary education populations in the world, and like a significant portion of that are women. And I've been back since, and the people are so warm and friendly. I still think there's like a huge dichotomy between, the ruling government and the actual people and sort of what they now want and feel. And
because you've got ski resorts and all sorts of things.
yeah, they've got great skiing actually.
Yeah.
The skis are never sharpened though, so that you're sort of like on some, and then the chairlifts have not been renovated or updated in quite some time. So it's a little risque, but they've got, it's a beautiful, beautiful country, and some of the sort of history when you go there is amazing. The food is amazing. The people are so warm and hospitable. And when you're there, you actually feel really safe. I've heard stories of, people visiting other countries in the Middle East where you don't feel that safe. Iran is not like that even now. You feel fine in the streets. It's just when it comes to politics and all of that, it's a bit of a mess.
I had a major general in here a couple of weeks ago when we talked about war and all that sort of stuff. An Australian major general, and he's had experience in Afghanistan, Iraq, various other places, and his point was that politicians start wars, not the people, and it's rare that people start wars. And I've known a lot of Iranian people, and also otherwise known as Persians. And one of the great distinctions that they always sort of try to let me know is that the Persian people are not Arabic. There's a difference between people who are of Arabic culture and background to Persian. Could you just explain? I'd love someone for once and for all to explain to me what is the difference. I mean, I know that
it's literally. I think it's like an ethnicity thing. It's like calling a Greek an Italian. They're not. Yeah. Is that similar? I feel like yes.
Or a Turk. If you call me a Greek, a Turk.
Yes,
that's a
or
problem.
a Turk. I mean, it was the Persian Empire, and they were the Persian people, and they still feel very proudly about that. I think sort of in modern times, like post-revolution, the main distinction is actually religion. So Iranians, Persians, for the most part, are Shia Muslim. Arabic people are sort of Sunni or a mix of both. Iraq is sort of like
Bit of each.
60% Shia, 40, or maybe it's the other way around, but a bit of both. But it's like 99.9% Shia Muslim. So,
which is why there's no internal problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
as opposed to
yes.
the other, well,
Yes.
relatively speaking, as
Exactly.
opposed to some of the other places where there is internal
Exactly.
problems.
That's true.
It's the two
Quite stable.
sects of the Muslim religion that are sort of fighting each other for a power base, which is politics.
Yeah.
How it works. So your mum and dad came to Australia. Did they settle off in Sydney to start?
You know what? I believe so. Yes, they definitely did.
So they
Sydney.
had 2 kids. They had another 2 kids.
They had another 2 kids.
Yeah, okay.
2 girls.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to PLC Pymble Ladies College.
So your dad must have had a reasonably good job because PLC.
You know what? He has he is very much a self-made man, and he is brilliant, super smart, topped the country in his Iranian exams or whatever, and then ended up getting a scholarship to go to university in Chicago. He is an electrical engineer. He's going to be annoyed if I get this wrong, but he's some sort of an engineer by sort of profession, but now works in IT.
So you'd be electrical engineer. If he's in IT, you'd be electrical engineer.
I think so.
Yep.
I think so. Okay. Loves physics. He's brilliant. When he moved to Australia, no, I don't think he had like a cent, but was a bit of a hustler, worked on building up an IT business that sort of provides managed services, and then has since sort of dabbled in a bit of property development, and very much a self-made first-generation immigrant.
Yeah.
And I think my brothers had a very different lifestyle to my sister and I as well, because there's sort of quite a large age gap, I think 13 years between me and my oldest brother. And yeah, they probably felt like they grew up quite differently to my sister and I. But I think he was quite established by the time my sister Hoda was born, and then I got all the sort of perks of their hard work.
So after PLC, what did you do?
So after PLC, I moved to the States, actually. So
just got up and said, I'm going, or what happened?
Look, it was an idea that was sort of seeding in the back of my mind for a long time. My sister had looked at schools overseas. I got all the pamphlets and was going through them. She actually never went through with it. I ended up applying to Yale. It was the only school I applied to because it was the only one I sort of had in the back of my mind. And by the time the HSC came around, it was just a lot of work. I was also school captain of PLC, Pymble Pride. And so, the US application process is very long-winded, and they do it over 2 years, and I was sort of squeezing it in over 3 months. So I just decided to commit to one, and I decided if I got in, I'd go, and if I didn't, I would start at Sydney Uni, which I actually did end up starting because you don't find out until about April if you get into the American universities.
And then what did you do there at Yale?
At Yale, I studied political science and international studies. Like I said, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I did a lot of internships sort of in the legal field. I interned for the International Criminal Court in my junior summer, which is your 3rd year. And that was incredible. And then when I graduated, in America as well, it's quite uncommon to go straight to grad school. You usually go and work for a few years and then come back with experience or whatever in the field that you want to pursue. So I was looking at a lot of jobs in the legal space as a, paralegal or a legal intern. However, really just wanted to stay in the States at that time, and so cast a really wide net. I was also interested in journalism, so was applying to a bunch of magazines, ended up getting this job at Vogue, of all places, very different to my law ambitions. However, it was such a cool job that I thought that no matter what I decided I wanted to end up doing, it would be a great sort of addition to the resume or a great learning
Even
experience.
your personal resume. I mean, it's just a great addition to your personal experiences.
Personal experience, yeah. And it was, I was Anna Wintour's assistant. I don't know if editor-in-chief of Vogue New York. She's the Devil Wears Prada. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
I know. I don't
Miranda
know the movie.
Priestley.
I didn't see it, but I know the movie.
Meryl Streep, that's Anna Wintour. So I knew it would sort of provide access to a lot of interesting people, a lot of insights into sort of the industry. But as I later learned, like every other industry, like Anna was so involved in politics and theatre and the arts. So it was a very cool 2 years. It was a very stressful 2 years. My first job out of uni in New York, they don't really take holidays. They don't really understand, what weekends are or anything like that. So it was full on for 2 years. And then I sort of started to burn out after that period of time. However, that job really ignited my interest, at least in the fashion industry. It was exciting. It was fast-paced. It was fun. And also entrepreneurship, sort of starting a business in this space.
How old were you?
I was 21 when I graduated, so 21 to 23.
Where does that chutzpah come from? That not just the desire, but the ability to back yourself to do something like that. Like, it's a pretty big thing. Like, you moved to New York? I mean,
I did move to New York. So Yale was in New Haven, which is like about an hour and a half outside of New York. Was coming into New York a lot in my last year, and then decided that was sort of where I wanted to end up post school. And then I was there for two and a half years before moving to London, which is sort of the next chapter.
This is probably Sex in the City period, is it?
It was Sex in the City period.
Yeah, so did you go to the bar at the Four Seasons there at the back there?
Yeah, we did everything. And I really had a very great little black book of all the top spots that, you should be ordering flowers from or dining at or whatever, But yeah, it was a very fun, hectic experience. And all my friends, because New Haven was so close, sort of ended up in New York as well, which was nice.
You're a little Aussie girl with Iranian parents, who set herself up in the 22 years of age in New York, working for Vogue, working for the big boss lady. And it was a really on-fire period for New York, by the way. New York's never been as on fire.
Yes. And it was an on-fire period for Vogue. I heard that was like their golden days.
Yeah.
I left, it was the peak of editorial, the peak of
influence.
New York City, yeah.
It was a peak of influence.
It was.
And she was an influencer.
She is the ultimate influencer, I would say. Yes. What she says goes.
What did you pick up in those couple of years?
So many things. I think it was the best training in work ethic. Like, I would highly recommend anyone that's just graduated from school to get a job that is, either shadowing one of these influential, important people, or just like even a finance job where you're working, crazy hours. Because when I look back at the time that I put in there, I don't know how I did it. Like, I'm shocked at my own resilience. But I think it sort of helped discipline me and structure my days and my general work ethic.
Can you explain that, your work ethic? What do you mean
like
by
in
that?
Australia, for example, like people work from 9 to 5 and that's
totally.
That's
I blew up
it.
yesterday my own business for that matter. Like, I was coming out of my finance business and I walked out there 20 to 6 and there was nobody there. And it was filthy. And I grabbed my HR guy who was still there and I said, mate, I don't even know what our hours are, but what are the hours? And I'm still pursuing it too, by the way, the next day. But yeah, you're right. Explain to me what you mean by a work ethic that you got exposed to. And everyone knows that Americans are mad on working. They work hard. Like Japanese, they work hard.
For example, Americans have about 10 days of leave a year. That's two weeks. You are not expected to take those 10 days. Like, it's sort of, whereas in Australia, it's 4 weeks. Everyone takes every last day. They take their sick days. They take their, whatever days. In America, for those 2 years, I probably had 5 of those 10 days off and then was working round the clock. I was, as her assistant, we were the first people in the office, which was at around 7 a.m. We were the last people out of the office, which was around 7:30 p.m. But the work didn't stop. It was sort of just stay on your phone, keep working, emails from 5 a.m. up until 10 p.m. And then on the weekends, every other weekend, I was on, like fully on, working in the office or from home, whatever. And that's just something that I feel grateful now because I'm doing something that I love and I want to be spending that time doing it. But I think it's hard to get into that routine without ever having been exposed it from above or being forced to do it. And I had it easy. I had a friend, my roommate at the time was working at JP Morgan, and she would come home at 2:00 in the morning. You know, she'd nap in the office and I don't know if that's necessarily, a good or healthy lifestyle, but for a year or two, you can certainly put up with it, and it kind of sets you up for life, I feel. Because then you do come back to an environment like this and you're like, oh, where is everyone? Like, why don't I have anything to do? Like, what's going on? So that was from the sort of hours and discipline perspective. But from Anna herself, so many invaluable lessons, like just the importance of a handwritten note. Something as simple as that.
You mean give to somebody else?
Give to somebody else. In appreciation, always a handwritten note, always remembering birthdays. Like those things matter and people appreciate it. And then when the time comes, you just never really know where the next opportunity is going to come from. And people that have seen these gestures consistently, and they're not meant to be transactional. I don't think they are. It's good manners and sort of staying connected with people, but it all comes back around full circle. And that was something interesting. Like someone as influential and as powerful as Anna that has so much to do, taking the time to write a handwritten note or send flowers to someone on their birthday every year.
That by definition means that she's organised because she's got to know when people.
I was organised.
You were
yes,
organised.
I was the organised one in the back.
So you knew about
birthday.
it. But still, she was organised through you.
Through us, exactly.
Yeah. So the big game, work hard, be prepared to work hard or be experienced or know what hard work really is. And hard work really is what you just described. But then do the 1%ers, which is what she did. The 1%ers, which is like sending notes, especially in a day and an age of mobile phones or smart devices where no one sends little handwritten notes.
No one even sends an email anymore. Like,
totally.
Send an email.
Not even text messages now. It's all DM.
Yeah.
You're then saying organisation to do these things. The system you have to have underneath you is an organisation system. A system, whether it's you do it yourself or whether you have someone. She's lucky enough to have someone like you because she works in a big organisation. So they're three important factors in being successful.
Certainly, like 100%. I think, like you said, having those systems in place or knowing what systems are important to you to keep in place and to follow up with regularly. I think also these all had something to do with staying connected to people and networking in a very refined way.
Okay, well, let's hit on networking because networking, Vogue and the editor of Vogue is a networker.
Yes.
Like, that's the game. You were experiencing it firsthand, watching it, participating in it. We all talk about networking. I mean, I see people go to seminars, they talk about networking, they think they're just networking because they're at a seminar. What is networking to you in terms of what you experienced?
I think networking should never be transactional, or you shouldn't think that you are going to get something out of your interactions with people. However, you should always be kind to people and you should always have time to people. The kindness part was less so, and she was great, but always having time for people. You know, if someone wants to set up a meeting, making time in your schedule, if someone wants advice or if someone needs help or mentorship, setting time aside to help that person. It can be annoying and exhausting, but firstly, you learn so much from those interactions about, spaces or industries that you might never have had exposure to. And then also you just never know when it's going to come back round. And like I said, you shouldn't expect it to, but oftentimes it does.
That's top down. But how do you get the confidence to say, well, that dude there is the top of the tree in whatever it is, the area that we're talking about here, we just as a make-believe thing. But how do you get the confidence to say, well, I'm going to reach out to that individual because I really want to talk to him because I read his paper on something or other?
I think if you know who that person is and know a little bit about their backgrounds, then making it sort of a personalized approach is always nice. I always appreciate it when people come up to me and say they admire something that I might have done or they listen to this podcast that we did. I always appreciate it because I'm like, oh, this person took time out of their day to listen to my random ramblings. I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
So I think don't be afraid of what the response will be. The worst they can say is like, sorry, I'm not interested in talking to you. But then they've got to be a pretty, you've either gotten them on a bad day or they're just not a very nice person.
But you had a crack. That's the most
You
important.
had a crack, yeah. And you just never know. You never know who's going to be open to providing that feedback. And I think, if you are at the top of the food chain, you really understand the importance of those gestures for those people.
Yeah, paying forward.
Yeah, exactly. And you will make the time from the bottom up, you'll be surprised at how many people are willing to offer your time and help. And I found that over the years, asking advice or help from people that I thought were so much more experienced or interesting or cool than I was. And if you don't ask, you don't know. And if you do and they say no, like that's the worst that can happen. No one ever has to know about it,
Lost nothing. So I'm a kid, never been on an aeroplane before, never been overseas, never been anywhere. And I was working in a law firm. I was 20, I don't know, young, pretty young. I was offered by the firm a trip to Singapore to go to a conference where all the top guys, Australian guys, were talking about stuff. It was an international tax conference, and the area that I worked at in the particular firm I worked at was mining tax. Particularly, was a very specialised area, and it was a very special part of the Tax Act. And anyway, I go to this thing in Singapore, staying at Shangri-La Hotel. Like I couldn't believe this place had steaks there for $50. Couldn't believe it. I remember ringing my mum and saying how expensive the steaks were, and I didn't have one I had no money. Anyway, I went to the conference and they were talking about a topic that I was pretty good at, and the guy was a senior partner in one of the big law firms in Australia, and I was sitting in the back and he said something was incorrect, in my opinion. And they asked questions after the presentation. There was like about 300 people in the room. So I put my hand up right at the back and I asked a question. I said, well, I think what you said about, I remember the section 124, large A, large H of the legislation. I said, I don't think what you said was correct. I think the proper interpretation is based on a certain case. And anyway, with that, he said to me, look, because I had a microphone in my hand, he said, look, that's a very good point. He said, maybe you could come and see me after the presentation, that old chestnut. I didn't realize what that meant. I've done that on myself, by the way, when I presented. Basically means, shit, you're right. I don't want to make a goose of myself. So we'll talk about after. Shut the hell up, kid. Anyway, I went and met him after it. I talked to him about it. And I don't even know what gave me the guts to ask the question. But then there's no email in those days, but within 2 weeks of me returning home, this firm was a big firm called Greenwood Challoner, became Freehills later on. He offered me a job. I didn't take the job, but he offered me a job. But it was all off the back of, one, I went on the trip. I didn't really want to go on the trip. Two, I made sure I attended all the conferences that were there. I didn't dog it at any stage. And I had the guts to ask a question. I don't really know. I was encouraged as such. I don't even know why I asked the question. I just thought it was wrong. I thought I'd stick my hand up. Maybe naivety. And I followed through. And I got a really good connection. He became a connection of mine forever. And I stayed in that business for 10 years, so to speak, thereabouts. And I crossed paths with him all the time.
And I will add one more thing to that, just from hearing that story. You were prepared because you knew the answer, but be prepared when you're coming from the bottom up. If you are approaching someone that you respect and admire, have the research behind it.
Know your topic. Yeah.
And don't waste people's time.
100% yes. Know your topic. And I was pretty confident in that regard. I did know my topic. Look, we'll go to the break and come straight back. Ray, I want to talk to you about how the hell you got involved with LTK. And by the way, what does LTK stand for? Because I don't know. I've got the app. I've looked at it, played around with it a bit. It's probably not that – it's not heavily geared to me, but nonetheless, I have been told I've got to get cooler shoes, so I've been trying to find out where to get those. But how did you get involved with LTK? Well, I presume it was after Vogue.
Yes, it was. So I actually worked for the company in London when I moved to London. As I mentioned, Vogue kind of ignited this interest in the fashion space. I knew I wanted to stay in the industry. However, I was also sensing a shift in editorial. I was interested in the startup space as well. And here was this cool, booming startup that had just launched an office in London. They're actually a Dallas-based company. They had a female co-founder who's 34 years old. She's beautiful, smart, vibrant. She sparkles when she speaks. Love her. And I just knew that this was something that I would be interested in exploring further. I was connected to Amber Vensbox, who is the founder of LTK, through one of my connections at Vogue, actually. And we just sort of had a conversation about what her company did, what her vision was for the future. And yeah, I guess that's kind of how I ended up working in London.
Why would you even think to talk to her? Did you tap someone on the shoulder at Vogue and say, look, can you introduce me to this person?
No. So typically what happens after 2 years is just the general run rate, I guess, for an assistant in that office. After that, a lot of girls go on to become heads of department. You know, Anna's trained them up. She trusts them. She knows what their work ethic is. You know, one girl went on to become head of events at Vogue, another head of PR. I knew I just didn't. I was pretty burnt out and I wanted to change. And so I knew I didn't want to stay at Vogue. I didn't know what I wanted to do, to be honest. So it was just a lot of conversations again. And this happened to be the most interesting conversation of many. So it was really just talking to a lot of people again, hearing what they did, hearing about their work, their industries. And again, there was a temporary moment where I thought maybe I'd want to go back into law or into consulting or finance. But I think this was the space that excited me. I also think, again, I knew that, and I still do think down the line, I will want to do a venture of my own. And so the startup space was very appealing to me.
And cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
But did she offer you a job? Or did you say, hey?
Oh, she offered me, Well, she said when I get to London to sort of talk to the team. When I was there, I met with their sort of managing director in London. At the time, there was I think there was like a very small team. It was him that offered me the job, but I feel like referred to by her.
Are you putting it out there that you might be interested in a job, or you just?
Oh no, that was me being like, the conversation with Amber was, I'm still exploring. I have no idea what I want to do. Let's see where this goes. When I moved to London and met with Dave, who is the managing director still, it was very much a conversation of, what roles do you have? I'd love to apply.
But you pushy about it? Push a little bit?
I'm not a pushy person.
Okay. What do you think it was about you that attracted him? In other words, was it your energy or was it your experience or?
I feel like I had literally just come from one of the coolest jobs in the world.
Yeah.
I feel like they were interested in that. I do think I've got a generally good energy. The job itself is evidence of work ethic and sort of my experience in the fashion space and my connection in that space and network within that space. But also, look, it wasn't like some high-level amazing job. It was just a way to get my foot in the door, a way to do something, because I always feel like I need to be doing something. And it was also in a very interesting space that had a lot of faith in and thought was going to be big.
But that's what attracted you. You've got the cred because they know you're going to work hard because there's no hiding from the fact of who you worked for. You're in the fashion industry, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you got connections. I mean, well, they assume you got connections because you would have been organising all these soirees and things for your boss,
yes,
who, by definition is connected.
Yes.
So I guess they're important things.
Yes.
Do you have to sort of not promote them, but do you have to sort of underline them for people?
Yeah, I mean, that's all in the resume writing though, isn't it? It's telling your narrative to the best of your ability. You can make it look pretty good. Anyone can make it look pretty good. If you sort of cater it to their skill set or the company that you're applying to, and, you could be a lawyer and apply to a fashion business and bring in all the skill sets that a lawyer requires to the fashion space, and I'm sure they would love to have you. And vice versa. Well, maybe less so vice versa. I'm not sure about that. I feel like
probably not vice versa.
I feel like it's quite.
So here you are working at LTK, and what was the job you got?
At the time, I was working with creators. It was I don't even remember the exact role. It was quite a while back. It was creator success development, and that is basically working with and recruiting influencers onto this platform. So
right.
LTK is probably the only truly premium influencer marketing platform in the world that puts the power in the hands of the creator and allows creators to create content and drive sales for brands and earn a commission on those sales. So it's a three-sided marketplace servicing brands on one end, creators on the other end, and consumers. It's all an ecosystem, and a brand has to agree to give up a percentage of their margin to any creator that drives a sale for them.
So let's say it's Nike, for example.
Yes, Nike.
Good example.
Nike is on the platform.
Yeah,
Great.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Nike says, I'm going to give up 15% of this sale to any creator that drives a sale to Nike.
Right.
Because the idea is the creator brought the person to the website, the creator drove the sale in the same way that you would give, David Jones or Maya a 40% margin because you want to be stocked there for your brand, a creator deserves a reward for driving that sale.
And what does a creator actually do with the brand? Let's say you're the creator and I'm a consumer and we've got Nike over here as the brand. What will you do for Nike?
The creator might own a pair of Nikes already.
Oh, yep.
Nike, there is no connection between the brand and the creator.
Right.
Unless it's a paid collaboration, but we can get into that later. So there doesn't have to be a connection between the creator and the brand. I own a pair of Nikes and I love my Nikes and I want to post them on my stories.
Yep.
And I'm going to link them in my stories.
Yep.
And then if anyone goes on to purchase those Nikes, because I've used an LTK link, I will earn a commission on those sales.
Or does it drop a pixel on them or something, does it?
Yes, it's an affiliate platform.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, it's an affiliate platform that specializes in influencers.
Right.
And because of that, it is premium because it's not like your honey coupons or anything. You're not working, there are creators that apply to the platform that are vetted, they're approved, and then they can then go on to link any of their content. LTK's goal has always been to make everything in a creator's life shoppable and accessible. And I think with that sort of blanket approach strategy, it actually makes it very authentic, right? Because no one wants to be tied to one brand or one store because that's just not realistic. And consumers see straight through that. Like, I know that you don't exclusively wear Nike, but maybe you have a pair of Nike shoes that you really love and you want to link. And maybe I want to link the dress that I'm wearing as well. And you know what? I want to link the rug in my house because I think it's important for consumers to be engaged with me and to make all of this accessible and shoppable. That's kind of the idea. So it's a more authentic way of selling product and making money.
If I took internet out of it and we actually just went to a marketplace, so we got the people walking around looking at all the various kiosks or stalls, and then it might be a creator-influencer, it might be you.
Yeah.
You're standing there and you've got your cool Nikes on, sitting there on a big high chair somewhere, and as people walk past, you're saying, you know what, I really love these shoes. You're advertising on that platform, which is a kiosk, in a marketplace, everybody's walking by.
Yes, exactly. And they're walking by at all hours, at all times of the day. Yeah.
And you would use your reach as an individual to tell them that you're going to be there. Are they using your influence, your marketability, your audience?
Well, we are using it in the sense that we are the technology that is fueling them to make money. Through our links, obviously there is like a small transaction fee. At the end of the day, it's a business. But ultimately, it's up to the creator if they want to link and if they want to drive sales and if they want to make their pages shoppable. Because up until now, I mean, the creator economy and creator guided commerce it's pretty novel. And I think LTK was very much a pioneer in this because they've been making content monetizable for influencers for over a decade. Instagram is only just now saying, oh, you know what, we need to think of ways that influencers can monetize this content outside of paid advertising. It's not paid advertising. It's not a brand saying to me, I'm going to pay you to post this. It's you just wanting to post it for the sake of posting it. And maybe you will drive a sale from it, but maybe you won't.
Let's say it is me, for argument's sake, and let's say I got...
I'm sure you're very influential, Mark.
So,
like, there'd be a lot of things. That black T-shirt. I think a lot of people would know.
It's a Calvin Klein, but it's the only ones that sort of fit me properly. But do I use my various social mediums as well?
Yes, because it is also an app. So in addition to being a technology that allows you to create commissionable links, it is also a shopping app. So where you can make all of your social platforms, be it TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, your blog, shoppable on one app.
Right.
You know, say I want to make my Instagram shoppable. I would download the LTK Creator app. I would link all the products and then I would post them on a storefront. We call them creator storefronts. And the idea is that, you know, the creator is the storefront of the future or today, not even the future. And it's a very personalized storefront because you will only follow an influencer unless you're a troll because you like what they wear and you like their lifestyle and you like their look and feel. And so you are attracting a much more engaged audience to a very specific type of shoppable content. And so the shopping experience becomes much more focused. On the app, actually, you see that conversions are a lot higher as well because it is purely intent driven. You go to the app to shop someone's look. And a lot of the times they'll include that link in their bio, for example. So on my Instagram bio, you can click in my bio and go to my storefront and then see all of my looks that have all been linked and are all shoppable. And it brings us sort of closer, it brings that accessibility, right? People want to be able to access your lifestyle or my lifestyle, and they don't want to have to feel awkward and ask those questions or, not get responses. And in the same way, the creator doesn't want to have to message everyone and then not see any return from that. This way, you're connecting consumers with audiences, with creators, and creators are earning commission on any sales that they drive.
That's very interesting. So you're right. It allows the creator-influencer to amplify their messaging, so to speak. Instead of answering 1,000 questions, they can do it once for 1,000 times.
Yeah.
For 1,000 people, or 50,000 people, or even outside their own audience. What does the LTK stand for?
So LTK used to be reward style, and the back end. So what creators used was reward style, and the consumer-facing part of it was like to know it.
Right, okay.
They've since combined both and rebranded as LTK.
Right.
Just the 3 letters.
Yeah.
But it stands for like to know it.
It's much easier to remember, LTK,
yes,
by the way.
exactly.
Like to know, it's a sort of a bit of a mouthful. And what is your role at LTK today?
So today I started off, worked my way up the ladder. Well, today, so I was in London for 2 years working for LTK. I then went to business school in the States, back to the States, and then moved back to Australia just before COVID. Managing director of the UK approached me and asked me if I'd be interested in setting up an office in Australia. They were sort of in the process of a big raise. We're looking to expand into new markets. Australia has always been a very lucrative market for them because it is so similar to the US and the UK. Our creators are amazing. They've also got large global audiences. So it was sort of the logical next step. I was consulting for them for a few months, and then I decided I really loved doing it. After I'd hired pretty much a full team on the ground, I basically put my hand up and said I'd run the business for them here. So now I'm managing director of LTK Australia.
It's the same app. It's not a different app.
No, but we work on building out the ecosystem in Australia. So like I said, their goal is to make everything shoppable. Everything that a creator wears shoppable. However, the clothes that an Australian creator is wearing are not the same as the clothes a person in the UK is wearing. We have Australian brands, we have Australian department stores, we have Australian homewares. So it's all about localizing that ecosystem and getting those brands on board to agree to give up a percentage of their sales, and then getting the creators on board so that they can drive traffic and sales to those brands.
It's a bit like you guys have established a supermarket, a marketplace, a supermarket, and then you got all these shelves everywhere, and you rent the shelves out to the various brands, and you take a commission for the rent. And it's sort of as a marketing fee.
We are in many ways a department store.
Yeah,
but
online.
An online department store where the creators are our storefronts.
Yep.
Yeah, and the brands are the products.
Yeah, it's very clever. It's very, very clever. This creator economy, which your organisation was at the forefront of, is it sort of proliferating in other places? I mean, are there other businesses or other brands? Is it becoming a thing?
Everywhere. I think the creator economy was traditionally very much in the fashion, beauty verticals. Now, and especially since COVID, you see it is expanding into every facet of your life. Homewares, food, dining, travel. People want to copy your lifestyle to every last degree.
What is that? I mean, have you guys done studies on this? I mean, I'm sure you've done some psychological studies on what the hell is it?
I think it's connecting. And I think something that, we found from our data and, the sort of years of data that we have is oftentimes some of those micro-influencers with smaller audiences convert really, really well.
Yeah, because their audience is just on the thing that they're talking about.
Yes, exactly. It's very niche. Yeah. And also they have a higher propensity to engage with their audiences. So like the likelihood that you will get a like or a response or something is so much higher. And so I think what it comes down to is that like desire to connect with someone. Yes, they're on the digital realm, but they could also be your friends. A lot of people these days have influencers in their group of friends. You are an influencer in a group of sort of friends that you might have. So I don't think it's, necessarily weird that people want to copy everything that these people want to do, but it's just the social fabric is changing. And I think the retail paradigm is shifting a lot as well, and again, the pandemic showed this when people couldn't go into physical retail and you see this huge spike in online retail. So I really do think the creator economy is just at its infancy. I think how small online sales are as a percentage of total retail is evidence of the potential for this to grow. I think in Australia, it's like 15% of total retail. And that's a huge jump from the previous year because of COVID. But just that confidence that people now have to shop online, to listen to creators that are talking to them about size and fit and, feel of a fabric. That's not something that you would previously gotten, that you are now starting to see a lot more of, and something that LTK's goal is to facilitate with.
It's funny, I've got a mate who's in the rag trade. Well, he's not so much anymore because of it's just too hard, storefronts and stuff like that. His family have always been, and he's in his 50 something. But he's a real cool dude, right? Super cool dude. If I'm looking to buy something, I'll often just ask him because I'm a log when it comes to fashion, like because I don't follow it, and I know he follows everyone and everything, and he looks at everything, and he has an interest in it, and he always looks good, and he's always at the forefront. He's curated what he considers to be the best. Therefore, I might as well just ask him. Save himself a whole lot of time.
So he's the influencer in your group,
So,
really?
So I mean, if he was on LGK, I'd look at what he's talking
100%.
about. So that's a good example. I mean, I'm lucky enough to know someone like that. So I just say, man, what shoes should I buy? And he'll send me on WhatsApp like 10 different types of shoes that I should buy, for example. They've done the work.
Someone that's a specialist in the field. Or
correct.
Whatever.
And we live our
You
lives.
trust them.
I don't have time.
Yeah.
We're time poor. I don't have time to troll through, whatever the men's version of Preta Porter, wherever it is, Mr. Porter. Yeah. I don't have the time to do that
It's
stuff.
a curated storefront. That's exactly
correct.
what it is. Yeah.
I don't want to go through I just don't want to do it. I don't have the time to do it.
100%. And I think it comes down to that personalized, focused shopping experience. Like if you like someone's style, you have the same complexion as them, the same body type as them, you're much more likely to be buying from that person than, say, Gigi Hadid, who I don't know if that top's going to look good on me because she looks amazing in everything, I think that realness and that personalized aspect of the LTK storefront is what makes it so successful, and the ability for creators to sort of provide that service of facilitating the shopping experience, making it just one step easier for you to make a purchase. Like, these size small, make sure you buy a size up. This fabric shrinks in the wash.
Yeah.
So, stuff like that. And I think something I want to mention, because I know this podcast is for small businesses, is that on the flip side, when we look at the small businesses that we are trying to recruit onto the platform to agree to give up a percentage of their commission, that friend of yours is someone that they may never have discovered through their marketing or PR team, because he's not an influencer in the number of followers sense.
Yep.
However, he is an influencer in your circle of friends, and that is something that our data sheds light on. It sheds light on conversions and sales. And so it helps with discovery of new talent and also new customer acquisition, because a brand that never markets to your friend will never market to you.
Correct.
From a brand perspective, LTK is really a wonderful source for new customer acquisition and new talent discovery, because obviously brands always want to work with talent that aligns with their brand. And that is important to do, to establish, what you want your brand to be and what your vision for the brand is. However, then there is also people that actually drive sales at the end of the day, and you just might not know who they are, where they live, or they just might not be the coolest looking Instagrammer on the block, but they engage really well with their audiences and they sell product. And so it's sort of that intersection of top of the market, top of the funnel marketing, and bottom of the funnel marketing.
It's sort of taken away a little bit from Instagram, though. I mean, you're sort of head on with Instagram a little bit, because that's sort of typical sort of digital marketing strategy that you just mentioned, top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. You're sort of putting it all in one place.
I'm saying we are in the middle, because Instagram hasn't, they've been saying they are planning on monetizing content for creators through shops, but it's still not available to everyone. And then also Instagram has always, I think the difference is LTK has always made money alongside influencers. We only make money if an influencer makes money. Our primary goal has always been to make creators as economically viable as possible. Whereas Instagram, this has never really been a priority of theirs. And LTK's main function is to shop looks. Whereas Instagram is purely, a social media platform. It's for distraction. It's when I see an ad on Instagram, I get really annoyed. I just flick through.
Me too.
Exactly, because you're not going there to shop.
I did get sucked in during COVID though, a few times, and I ended up with some weird shit.
But you regret it.
Like garlic crushes and orange juices and all sorts of weird things, none of which were.
And I think, we're not saying to get rid of your Google ads. Like, it is important to do. It's just important to also couple it with influencer marketing that is actually driving sales. because you will reach such a wide audience that you never even knew possible. And you will learn a lot about your product as well. You know, there are some crazy stories about people selling product to a specific target audience and thinking that's their target audience, but then someone else is selling it so much better that they have to reconsider the product. Like, oh, we're a protein shake selling to women, but should we be selling to bodybuilders because they are the ones that are buying this? You know, I think if you're open to understanding the data and seeing who is actually driving your sales, it'll be a really interesting learning experience for the business as well.
Just mentioned protein shakes. But has LTK expanded into those environments? Yes. Okay.
All verticals. So
all
we
verticals.
are now looking in Australia at CPG, sort of food, beverages, because a lot of big budgets are in beverages.
Yeah.
Beverages really want to engage with influencer marketing. We are looking at travel and lifestyle as well. Furniture is LTK Home in America is a huge, huge seller for them.
I can imagine why. Yeah.
Yeah, because everyone wants to know, you know, they want advice on those things.
You
Those
got
are
that
things
desk
that
or that lamp. That's
and
cool.
you see it in situ in a home, and
tell
you're
me
like,
about
oh,
it.
that looks great. Like,
yeah.
There's something else worth mentioning is the creator has very much today become the Vogue magazine in a way. Like they are not only creating the content, they're producing it, they're writing it, they're styling it. Like it's all in one job. And then they're sort of putting it out there for you to pick and choose from.
Vogue. If you look at Vogue Australia, I don't even know if it exists anymore. And
Vogue Australia.
I remember Nancy Pilcher, who used to be the editor of Vogue, and her son Lincoln went to school with one of my boys, and he played footy with him. And but that was when she was the boss there, that was a powerhouse. But your business, LTK, has sort of really taken those environments head on. So, you know, you are the Vogue magazine, not just for fashion, but for a whole series of things. Today, what's going to happen with those magazines? Do people still, I don't even know if it's still in circulation, Vogue, is it?
I think Vogue's actually done an amazing job of like revamping their digital presence. It's got a very different brand to their editorial presence. And I think there will always be a place for the editorial as well, because the editorial it's like art, you know, it's very curated. It's very inaccessible. It's actually opposite of what LTK is, where we are trying to make everything accessible and shoppable. But I think people really appreciate that. I do think their online presence, however, is completely different from that. And it's fun and a bit more Gen Z. And if they can figure out a way to, I guess, monetize that really well, like a Net-a-Porter that made the digital magazine, you know? I don't know, maybe I've just got a soft spot for Vogue, but it will always have some sort of relevance to me because it is in a lot of ways that key influencer. Like it's got Vogue America has like 20 million followers on Instagram or something. So they still are influencing in a sense.
But not broadly.
But maybe they are one of those many influencers, you know, like Kim Kardashian is probably.
Yeah, but they're using the top of the tree. They're not using a local
definitely.
business.
And they are. They're that print media that you should still be investing in alongside your influencer marketing budget, I think.
If you're at that level.
If
you can get at that level. If you're the local Paddington designer.
Yes. Yeah.
You can't afford it. You guys have democratized. It's called creator influencer marketing for brands and products. You've sort of democratized it. It made it more accessible.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we are a global company. So for a lot of Australian companies, the appeal of LTK is that if they do want to expand into overseas markets, we have over 10 years of proprietary data that will tell you who the top 10 converting influencers are in the US, in the UK, in France, in Brazil. So it's like your one-stop shop. If an Australian brand wants to like look at overseas, look at new markets, they want to sort of get a foot through the door, but they don't know where to start, I think LTK is also a really great sort of place to come to.
Ray, if I was looking at analysing the value of someone promoting their brand by the number of times the word LTK was mentioned in a podcast, you've killed it. So I really appreciate, and actually I appreciate your explanation of what you guys do. I think that they are in good hands, and I don't mean that in a condescending way. I really do think they're in good hands here with you in Australia. I appreciate the talk. It was fantastic, and it just goes to show. I mean, it's not disruption as such. It really isn't real disruption, but it is an adaptation using digital, an adaptation of what you learned as a Vogue person. Even though you weren't the person in charge of sales, you weren't the person in charge of editorial, but you watched and learned. And you know, a lot of people can get a lot of great inspiration, particularly Australians, listening to this. So I appreciate this.
Thank you. That was such a pleasure.
You're welcome.